Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be going through Judges chapters 2 through 5, and it's been a couple days since we've been together, and um, really what it's been is a time for me and Lisa to get together and just to share here. The God is good. God is really good. He shows us things. He reveals things to us, and then it's really up to us whether we live into those things or not. And that's one of the really cool things of walking with Christ. And basically, over the last 5 days, through prayer and just through some different events, God really showed me that I didn't care. I don't care. I care abstractly. I care deeply for people. For just things, right? But I don't care practically. I don't necessarily show up for people practically in a practical, real kind of way. And specifically, one of the most important people of my life, that would be Lisa. I haven't shown up for her practically. And one of the things that means a lot to her is quality time. And so now it's up to me, with God's grace, to live into that. So that's where we're at, and two, um, you know, some things that have been shown is, in Scripture it tells us it's better to give than to receive. And so what I'm charged with right now is to live that out and to give to Lisa, and just be in that mode of giving, and also just thinking about Christ, thinking about Paul speaking about marriage. And he says marriage is I as a man, I'm supposed to look at my marriage as bride, as Christ looks at the church, and the church being his bride. So that's the path before me right now, and that's what the last couple of days has held. So, uh, all right, chapters 2 through 5 in Judges, Israel's disobedience, um, and then there's the death of Joshua, and then we also once again see Israel's unfaithfulness. And starting off in chapter 2, right in verse 1, it says, "Then the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim." And again, it's just reminding the people, hey, look, I've led you up from Egypt. I've brought you to the land of which I swore to your fathers, and I said, I'll never break my covenant with you. And um, and then he says, in verse 2, "And you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall tear down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Therefore I also said, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall be thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare to you. So it was when the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the children of Israel that the people lifted up their voices and wept." And just pointing out here that they wept. We have emotions, right? And even as we walk with Christ, as we're reading, as things are being shown to us, as people in our lives are speaking to us, we have emotions. We weep, we cry, and that's good. But with those emotions, it's just that. What do we do with that? What's the response? Because yeah, they're crying here, right? And we may see emotions in ourselves or in others, and they just really, you know, seem to um, be repentant, and maybe they are. But now the question is what do we do with that, right? What do the people of Israel do with this? So after that emotional moment, what are we going to live into it now? Are we going to respond? And right on the heels of this, we see that Israel doesn't. So it ends up being just an emotion. Then they called the name of the place Bochim, which means weeping. Um, and then there's the death of Joshua, and it says in verse 8, "Now Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died when he was 110 years old, and they buried him within the border of his inheritance at Timnath Heres in the mountains of Ephraim on the north side of Mount Gash. When all that generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord nor the work which he had done for Israel. And and that's huge. Here's a whole generation that's being risen up right now that has no idea of who the Lord is, and it brings up uh, the command given by Moses back in Deuteronomy chapter 6 in verses 10 through 12 here, referencing back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, 10 through 12. He says, "So it shall be when the Lord your God brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you large and beautiful cities which you did not build, houses full of all good things which you did not fill, hewn out wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you have eaten and are full," here it is, "then beware lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage." And then in verses 20 through 25, 20 says, "When your son asks you in time to come, saying, 'Hey, what is the meaning of these testimonies, these statutes, and the judgments which the Lord our God has commanded you?' And then it says, 'And you shall say to your son,'" and then it goes through and gives, basically the Exodus, right? What happened, how they came out of Egypt. So that in verse 25, "Then it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to observe all these commandments before the Lord our God as he commanded us." And this hasn't happened. Back in Judges, verse 10 of chapter 2, "This generation that arises does not know the Lord nor the work which they have done." So here they are in the land of Canaan. These people are thorn in their sides. They've intermingled. They've intermarried. Which even that, they had broken commands. And all of this because God knows them. God knows us. God knows our heart. God knows what things will be given into. And I'll speak more about this as we look at verse 11 here, Israel's unfaithfulness. With basically verses 11 through really through 18, what we see here, just in these verses, it really captures the pattern of the whole book of Judges and what we're going to see as these different judges rise up. In verses 11 through 13, it's all based on sin, right? It says, "Then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals, and they forsook the Lord of their fathers who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and they followed other gods from among the gods of the people who were all around them. And they bowed down to them, and they provoked the Lord to anger. They forsook the Lord and served Baal and the Ashtaroths." Forgot to turn that off. "And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. So he delivered them into the hands of the plunderers." So with this deliverance into the hand of the plunderers, servitude, right? So there's sin, and then they're given over to the people around them. Then there's this servitude. And then in verse 16, it says, "Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges who delivered them out of the hand of those who plundered them." So there's salvation. And there's one in between here that we don't see patterned, but we see it in other verses, and that's supplication. So there's the sin of what they're doing. There's then this servitude as they're given over to the other people around them. And then they start crying out to the Lord. There's this supplication. And then the Lord brings salvation or brings rest, right? I mean, as we enter into the Lord's salvation, Jesus says his yoke is light. Come, all you who are weary. And that's exactly what there is finding rest in that redemption. So, something to point out here too is that, there's this idea that we're inherently good, and that's not the case. If you look at just a kid, even my own kids, I mean, they're innocent. Our kids are definitely innocent, but their heart isn't inherently good. They're really inherently selfish. The world inherently revolves around them, and we live that out on a daily basis. What's mine? This is mine, 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 right? And and then as we get into being adults, there's this view towards people of like, man, he's a really nice guy. He's really nice. Nice isn't inherently good. And what we see in verse 11 with sin, and what we really have to come to grips with, is the fact that our hearts are desperately wicked, right? And that we wander away. I mean, we're seeing this over and over, and we're going to see this over and over with Israel. There's this constant wandering away. Our hearts, as we're told in Ecclesiastes, our eternity's placed upon our hearts. We have this built-in desire to worship, and then we kind of get lost in that. Where are we going with that? So anyway, I rambled, but just think about that and consider that for yourself. So chapter 2. It says that, and then getting into so back in 16, nevertheless the Lord raised up judges, and when in verse 18, and when the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who oppressed them and harassed them. And it came to pass when the judge was dead that they reverted and behaved more corruptly than their fathers, by following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not cease from their own doings, nor from their stubborn way. And then, of course, the Lord is angry. And verse 23, therefore the Lord left those nations without driving them out immediately, nor did he deliver them out of the hand of Joshua. There was something here, and it's just coming out to me now. I apologize. I know I'm kind of lingering here. Verse 20, then the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he says, because this nation has transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and has not heeded my voice, I also will no longer drive out before them any of the nations which Joshua left when he died, so that through them I may test Israel, whether they will keep the ways of the Lord to walk in them as their fathers kept them or not. So he leaves those nations. And what there is here is, first of all, we're dealing with a generation that doesn't even know the Lord. And so now these nations are being left around the Israelites so that he can test them. So and in this testing, and even right now, and even in your own life, what trial are you going through? Because we are in a we're told that we, in the New Testament that, it's not flesh and blood that we fight against. It's a spiritual world, right? But it is a war. There is warfare. So these people are left around them. I mean, here's this generation who doesn't know the Lord. Is it to be all roses for them? No, because there is this warfare, and these people are being left here, and they're going to have to fight against them. They're going to have to learn warfare. They're going to have to be risen up inside of that, just as we are risen up inside of our own trials. And then in chapter 3, it gets says the nations remaining in the land. Yeah, and it's and here it is spoken. Referring back to this, it says, now these are the nations which the Lord left, that he might test Israel by them. That is, all who had not known any of the wars in Canaan. This is speaking more directly to what we were just talking about. This was only so that the generations of the children of Israel might be taught to know war, at least those who had not formerly known it. And then it lists the lords that are left in the land. And then verse 5, the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And here we are, verse 6, and they took their daughters to be their wives, and they gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. And then in verse 7, Othniel is the first judge who is risen up, and he rises up within the context of here they are, they have forgot their God, they're serving the Baals and the Asherahs. And then the king of Mesopotamia, Cushan-Rishathaim, is who takes over, and they're under his in servitude to him for 8 years. And then Othniel rises up and delivers with the Spirit of the Lord coming upon him, delivers and judges Israel, goes out to war. And then it says the land in verse 11 had rest for 40 years. And then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. Okay, we didn't make it to chapter 5, but we'll keep going along, guys. 5 seconds. God bless you, and see you next time.